Ciao a tutti and welcome back to the Meandering Mena YouTube channel. You might have noticed that this video is already a little bit different from the others in the past, and that's because, Toto, we are not in Scotland anymore. We are in Bella Italia. I flew into Rome and drove down to Naples to visit a site I have wanted to see for years, the archaeological ruins of Pompeii. This trip has been many years in the making, and I am so happy to say that it finally materialized. As an art historian, you're required to take classes that cover a variety of eras, geographies, and styles, but I've always enjoyed the classics and seeing its influence upon art through the ages. I tell you this because one of my very favorite classics courses during my studies was on Pompeii and the cities of Vesuvius. Now, this was a semester-long course, so there's certainly no way that we can cover a semester's worth of material in this one video. But I'm certainly going to put all of my effort into making this an educational and inspirational video in the hopes that you venture to see Pompeii and the other cities around Mount Vesuvius yourself. Andiamo tutti! Skip the queue and get your tickets online ahead of time. This is the best way to make sure your time at Pompeii is spent walking the grounds and not waiting in line. If you're planning on going to a couple of the museums, archaeological and historic sites around Naples, there are options online to purchase multi-day passes and bundled tickets. When we talk about ancient Greece and Rome, it is important to remember that the ancients did not have the same beliefs around modesty and morality that most people do today. That being said, a significant amount of the art, artifacts, and architecture have more than just an erotic undertone. Pompeii will easily make you blush, and the shock and awe factor has actually drawn visitors for hundreds of years. That being said, I am unofficially rating this video as PG-13 due to the difference in values between contemporary culture and Pompeian culture. Case in point would be the exhibit on display from April of 2022 to September of 2023 entitled Art and Sensuality in the Houses of Pompeii. Now that my disclaimer is out of the way, we'll begin at that very exhibition. I'm going to include as many of the exhibition's informational blurbs as possible. As this collection features findings from Pompeian domiciles, the curators have helpfully included blurbs outlining the setup of houses during Pompeii's heyday, so feel free to pause and read for more in-depth information. You'll see marble sculptures, some with, shall we say, more than slightly generous depictions of endowment, amazingly vibrant frescoes, impressive mosaic work, hairpins and cosmetic accessories, bronze lamp holders, and more. The items on display in this exhibition are so impressive, especially considering that they are all at least 1,944 years old. We know this because the artifacts have a terminus antiquem of 79 AD, meaning that everything unearthed at the archaeological ruins of ancient Pompeii had to have been there before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The archaeological site remained untouched and undiscovered until Italian architect Domenico Fontana stumbled upon the ruins in the 16th century, which is the 1500s for those of you who still find that a bit confusing. Excavations of Pompeii began in the 18th century, or the 1700s, but were often destructive and haphazard, as proper archaeological methodology, protocol, and examination techniques had not yet been established and standardized. Thankfully, Pompeii's secrets are still being unearthed, and the archaeological faux pas of the past are just that, in the past. You'll see a few mythological figures around Pompeii that would be helpful to familiarize yourself with before you go. Venus, called Aphrodite by the Greeks, is the goddess of love, beauty, fertility, sensuality, and victory. Pan is the Greek god of shepherds, nature, hunting, the forest, rustic music, and sex, usually equated in Roman mythology as Faunus. Unfortunately for Pan, his romantic and sexual advances were frequently unreciprocated due to his unattractive appearance of being a satyr, which is a half-man, half-goat type creature, depicted with or without goat horns. Priapus is another one of the gods that makes regular appearances around Pompeii. Priapus, or Priapus, who's a Greek god,
and he's most easily identified by his small stature and exaggeratedly large phallus. It's no surprise that his territory covered fertility, especially that of the animal and agricultural realms, and also he is the patron god of male genitalia. Surprise, surprise. The sheer number of artifacts and treasures recovered and still being recovered from the ruins of Pompeii is so substantial, and it's important to remember why that is. Pompeii was a city with a population of 10 to 20,000 people, and its estimated population at the time of the eruption of Mount Vesuvius was around 12,000. Cities and regions of comparable population size, between 10 to 20,000, are Sorrento, Italy, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and the Isle of Skye and St. Andrews in Scotland. You will want to spend several hours at Pompeii, if not the whole day, in order to see as much as possible. To see everything, you might need to spend a couple of days. Certain buildings are only open on particular days of the week, so if there was a specific building or area you wanted to make sure to see on your visit, definitely check the website to plan that visit ahead of time. You can find this schedule on the Pompeii site's website under the Open Buildings page and the section entitled The House of the Day. As we continue our wanderings around the site, I wanted to remind you to look up and look down as you walk through the streets and buildings of Pompeii. You'll see ornamental details everywhere, such as intricately carved fountainheads, phallic symbols on walls and buildings, and innovative city planning choices such as raised stone crosswalks to avoid stepping in rain and wastewater runoff. The masonry and tiling work is so impressive, especially when you think about everything that it has endured with Mount Vesuvius's many eruptions over the last 2,000 years or so. I know the temptation is to hurry through the walkways on the way to the next destination, but Pompeii is truly one of the sites where the journey is just as interesting and important as the destination. I stumbled upon many interesting areas that weren't in the plans of things to see while on the way to the next thing I wanted to see. There are sculptures, frescoes, engravings, graffiti, and more that people tend to overlook. I would also encourage you to look up and look down to keep an eye out for cute wee salamanders bathing in the sun. I want to go over a couple of art and art history terms that might arise throughout your exploration of Pompeii and other historical sites and museums, so that you have a baseline of knowledge surrounding different media, techniques, and styles. I've spoken about frescoes so far in this video, but frescoes, meaning fresh in Italian, are paintings done on top of wet or fresh plaster. The paint becomes intermingled and incorporated into the wet plaster, making it more long-lasting and weaving the art into the structural elements of the house. Painted walls have a tendency to flake, but frescoes will usually stay intact as long as they are done correctly and aren't exposed to direct sunlight. Some of the sculptures you'll see are what is known as freestanding sculptures or sculptures in the round. The most well-known sculpture in the round is probably Michelangelo's David in Florence, likely followed by the Venus de Milo. A sculpture in the round is freestanding and sculpted in a way so that the viewer can walk around the sculpture and see the fullness of the figure or scene from 360 degrees, hence sculpture in the round. In addition to freestanding sculptures, you'll also see relief sculptures. This kind of sculpture is meant to be viewed from basically one vantage point, and it's still attached to the background. You see this style frequently on entablatures and friezes in the ancient world, but a simple way for you to remember the definition of a relief sculpture is to think of a coin. When you see the sculpture of Queen Elizabeth, or George Washington, or the map of Europe on money, think relief. You're relieved to have come across some cold hard cash, but it's also a relief sculpture, meaning that that figure is still attached to the background. Let's take this one step further. Freestanding sculptures can be additive or subtractive. Marble statues, such as the ones we've seen in the Art and Sensuality in the Houses of Pompeii exhibition, are subtractive sculptures. That means that material is removed or subtracted from the initial material, which most frequently in that exhibition was a block of marble. And that material is subtracted to create the image or the figure that you're seeing. Additive sculpture requires adding product and materials to create the sculpted form. Think along the lines of welding, modeling, and pottery. Even cake decorating could be an ephemeral form of additive sculpture if you think about it. Okay, enough terminological lessons for now. When most people think of Pompeii, images of bodies encased in plaster come to mind. These are real people who perished as a result of Vesuvius's pyroclastic eruption, so it's important to be respectful. This would not be an appropriate place or time to be taking a smiling selfie flashing the peace sign. You can find these casts scattered around Pompeii in different areas such as the entrance, Villa of the Mysteries, and many more locations. Something else that you might be interested in is the red-lettered graffiti on buildings all around Pompeii. It just goes to show that humans have always wanted to leave their mark to tell others, I was here. There's a brilliant online project that has put together a directory of the locations, translations, and images of graffiti around Pompeii, so I'll link that site below. Some of the meanings are crude in nature, which should be of no surprise to you at this point in our discussion of Pompeii. A couple of the translations are, I screwed the barmaid. Here love will be wise. Idiot. He who does not know to guard himself does not know how to live. The tiniest trouble, if ignored, becomes tremendous. I wiped myself. Bye, Chloe. And Acanthus was here. You'll also see lots of drawings of ships, gladiators, horses, stars, and phalluses, which is not unlike the drawings of middle school boys, because some things don't change. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed our little meander around Pompeii. If you learned something or enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, comment, and share, and I'll see you the next time we meander the gorgeous globe together. Bye-bye.